Welcome to Popcorn Bucket List. We are back after our couple-month-long hiatus. We took a little break over the winter time, but we are back. It is good to be back. It's good to be sitting here in the chair, sitting at the desk, talking movies with you. I am wearing a Black Panther t-shirt. I'm your host, Nick Dahlhoff. This was something I got for Christmas, speaking of the winter months. Sitting right next to me, talking movies, is my good friend. He's the man with the plan, and that plan is to wear a cutoff shirt in what we're recording this in like January, February.
Yep.
He's doing it in the Minnesota winter, but his name is Mr. Ryan Meyerberg.
That's all right. This month, I'm going with Sabaton. They are a Swedish metal band. Absolutely fantastic band. They sing about World War I, World War II, battles, just pretty much anything involved in any of the world wars or conflicts.
He does the music shirts, I do the movie shirts. I'm running out of movie shirts, though. This was a nice Christmas present. But speaking of World Wars, we might actually mention that here in some of these movies that we're talking about. Let's start things off with the box office, with the money makers, the ones that made the most in these 2 months. But before we get into our top fives, let's see who won out of our bets. It's a real shocker here, people. The winner between our two picks, or our bets for the best box office, was Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker. Hold on to your seats here, folks. Stars won the weekend.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, this was one of those instances where it just kind of came down to who won the coin toss. We knew this one was going to take it.
Yep. Whoever won that coin toss was going to get that one right.
It was going to be Star Wars. So obviously no surprise there. Let's see how it stacked up against some of the other movies that came out these past few months with our top 5 list. Coming in at number 5, I think was probably one of the first big surprises, was Dolittle. Obviously, it has that Robert Downey Jr. push, but I really didn't expect much out of this movie here, but it did crack the top 5, which is especially surprising when you think it had 2 months' worth of movies to compete against. That's the other thing you have to look at when you look at this top 5. Most of these movies had to compete against 2 months worth of movies.
Yeah, it was competing against some very, very good films that were out there, like we kind of talked about before. December has a little bit more of your blockbuster type-ish films, whereas January and February kind of slow down a little bit. And this one was pushed up into December, and it performed surprisingly well. So that was interesting to see.
Coming in at the number 4 spot, this one we kind of have to talk about as far as kind of how its release went. But 1917. Now, this movie is interesting because it had a limited release in December. That's why it's allowed to be under Oscar contention for all this year.
Yep.
But its wide opening release, that's what we were basing this off. That's what we're basing all these numbers off, is its wide opening release states. That was the one that actually pushed it into getting a over $30 million opening here. Overall, nice to see a good Oscar contender also make some money.
Yeah, and I think we'll kind of dive into the film in a little bit, but there was fantastic film. Fantastic.
Yeah. Coming in at the number 3rd spot was my pick. Did not disappoint, I think, generally speaking, as far as where it landed in the top 5. 3 is still a pretty good spot, but Jumanji: The Next Level. This was a comedy sequel. This what I thought was going to be the only chance to even possibly even get close to Star Wars.
I think you're right with you have The Rock, you have
Kevin Hart,
the
Nick
rest
Jonas,
of the cast,
the Jonas
Nick
Brothers
Jonas,
are kind of on a resurgence.
I mean that didn't, like, I think you hit it spot on. That film we thought had the best chance of catching up or overtaking Star Wars, and obviously it's not going to. But that one had the best chance of maybe making a push.
Yep. But the film that did end up becoming the closest to possibly dethroning Star Wars was our number 2 spot, Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah.
This was a January release. No one asked for this film, as far as I know of. It had been announced years ago and finally came out. And then this is the one that took the 2nd spot with a $62 million gross, overshadowing Jumanji by at least $3 million here.
Yeah.
So they were close battlers there at one point, but overall taking the 2nd spot.
Yeah, and Bad Boys, like you said, they weren't weren't out demanding for this movie. They teamed up, they did it, they got it done, put it out, and people loved it. People went and saw it, and it made some money. And I was a little surprised at how much it made, but I knew there would be a following. If you've seen the first Bad Boys movies and you liked them, you're gonna go see the third one. So it was interesting. It was interesting.
But coming in at that number one spot, it's the unbeatable opponent of all box office kingpins, the Star Wars franchise, coming in at number one with Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. It is interesting to mention, this did take the number one spot. It helped you win this
Yes, it did.
our bets for this one.
Yes, it did.
However, it underperformed its two predecessors in what is known as the sequel trilogy. The opening week, pretty much when you looked at every weekend compared to The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, it was winning weekends, but it was always not even close to The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. It was those two, and then this one just never could catch up.
Never got up to it. Yep. I don't know. Yeah, that's a whole different ball game getting into why it didn't make quite that much money.
I think it is also interesting. People have talked about Star Wars fatigue possibly being the reason for this. However, you see at the same time things like The Mandalorian coming out
And getting
crushing
great
it.
reviews. Everybody's talking about it. Yeah,
Star Wars The Clone Wars is still going strong. Star Wars Rebels.
Yep.
The TV series are doing great. For some reason, these movies just haven't been able to retain audiences as
Yep.
much. So it will be interesting to see in the future what Star Wars plans to do. I don't envy them. It's a big franchise. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made with stuff
a
like
lot
that.
of options. A lot of options.
But those are our top five for the box office from these past 2 months. When we come back after the break, we're going to start talking about some of the best reviewed movies from the past 2 months. And then we're going to finish it off by giving you a nice little preview of what's to come in the month of February. Stay tuned to Popcorn Bucket List.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look.
Welcome back to Popcorn Bucket List. We just got done talking about some of the biggest money makers from the last 2 months. We're now going to look at some of the most critically and fan-reviewed movies from December and January. Let's talk, first of all, let's show who won Best Reviewed of December, January. Unfortunately, Ryan goes 2 for 2 this week.
2 for 2, baby. Let's go.
This one was a close call, though. I think either one of these could have taken it. Little Woman did, however, pull forward.
Yep.
One of them is nominated for Best Picture. The other one, I believe, is not. So, in fairness, you were not the only one who thought this movie was better. But let's see how it stacked up against some of the other movies that came out in December and January. Let's take a look at the top 5. Coming in at number 5, an animated movie. Not the first time we're going to be talking about Will Smith here either. Spies in Disguise, coming in at a little over 80% average on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, just as a reminder, how we come up with these scores is we go to the Rotten Tomatoes website where we are able to look at critic-reviewed scores as well as fan-reviewed scores, and we take those two numbers and average them out because we like to see both sides of the argument.
Yep.
We like to look at both sides of the coin, and we think the best way to show which movies truly did the best are the ones that have the best average fan and critic scores.
Yep.
So both the fans and the critics came up with a consensus of an 83.5. Not a bad score overall, especially for
not
an
at all.
animated movie in December. Coming in at number 4, though, was my pick for Best Reviewed. Still not too shabby. The biopic, or based on the true story movie of Richard Jewell. Clint Eastwood directed, coming in at 84%. A lot of people have talked about a lot of the performances that I think are really good with this movie, which I think kind of gave it that push. And also, when you handle a true story, if you handle it right, if you execute it right, people tend to follow it. And if you tend to kind of botch it a little bit, it may not hurt it at first, but sometimes it won't age as well. Sometimes.
And the hard part, you know, as you talk about, it's a true story. So most people, not everybody, but most people know the outcome. They know what happens. They're familiar with it. So how can you keep an audience entertained while they know what the outcome is, what the penultimate outcome is, you know?
Yeah,
So
it's hard to convince people to come and
is.
sit for 2 hours in a movie theater when I could just look all this up on Wikipedia sometimes.
Or you might know a majority of it, you know?
Yeah. Taking that third spot, however, this I would say is probably one of the bigger surprises as far as the reviewed category goes. But they're coming back in, Bad Boys for Life at the number 3 spot. I told you it wasn't the last time we were going to be talking about Will Smith. I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about box office. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence just came in, did the movie. They did it exactly. They knew what the fans were looking for.
Yeah. Yep.
People might not have been asking for this, but it's
we
almost,
got it.
Yeah, it's almost like they watched the first two. They're like, fans
Hey,
did enjoy this. Let's not change the formula.
Yeah, let's make another one.
Yep,
Throw
yep.
another one in. Yeah, and it's surprised, like you said. Where is it? Right here. Bad Boys. It got a 76 critic score, but a 97 audience score. You know, they knew exactly what the audience wanted, and they gave it to them.
And most times you would look at the 76 critic score and think that's kind of dragging it down. But really, when you think about it, a dumb action shoot 'em up movie that's a sequel.
Second sequel, or however you say that.
One of them in the trilogy or whatever.
Yeah.
76 scores, pretty good.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, yeah, big surprise there, obviously. Coming in at the number 2 spot, this was, we mentioned, in the box office. It's coming back a little bit in a higher spot here in the reviewed category, 1917, almost breaking into that 90 percentile range. Taking the number 1 spot for our best reviewed, it was Ryan's pick. He not only picked the right ones, he picked the number 1s in each one. You know, if we were keeping track, that may be worth bonus points, but we're not keeping track, mainly because I think I'm losing. But it's my show. I can do what I want. Coming in at number 1 was Little Women. This is an Oscar contender, pretty strong Best Picture, possibly winner here. So those are some of the best reviewed movies. Those are some of the best box office winners. Feel free to check any of these out. I think the reason why they end up on these lists, they have some entertainment for all. But we're going to kind of narrow it down even a little bit more. It's time for our number 1 recommends. Ryan, why don't you start us off? What is your number 1 recommend pick?
All right. My number 1 recommend pick this month is Richard Jewell. Coming into this, I knew a little bit about the bombing. I didn't know a whole lot. I liked Clint Eastwood. I remember when I first saw him in the I, Tonya movie as the bad guy, and then I saw him playing a good guy in this movie, and I thought, hey, that kind of hooked me. I like that actor.
Yeah.
It's got John Hamm in there, and he does a fantastic job. He's one of those characters, you don't like him, but you do like him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, that's a bad guy, that's a good guy,
Yeah.
and they do a great job. And like we said earlier, it's hard to get audiences to sit in a theater for 2 hours of a story they already know. And I thought Clint Eastwood did a great job directing the actors to give their best performances. And I thought I was in tune the whole time. Sam Rockwell's in there. He has an astonishing job. Just a very well done movie. And if you have time, you should definitely go check it out. It's a very well done movie.
Yeah, I think Sam Rockwell has one of the best sneaky good performances
Yes.
of some of these recent movies. He has some of the funniest bits, I think, because him and John Hamm will just go at odds with each other.
Yep.
And they're like children just on the playground.
And the scene with him and the newspaper lady.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Kind of a little bit out of nowhere, but it's hilarious.
yeah,
and
it's pretty funny.
It's very well done.
My number 1 recommend that I'm going to give for this month is, we've mentioned it a few times, 1917. This is the World War I story, all taken from one shot, as we mentioned before. I really enjoyed watching this movie. There isn't a whole lot of character connections, I think, just because you have to. It is on a time crunch. so the characters can't really stick around as much. So there really isn't a lot of time for you to get emotionally attached to a lot of people. But those moments that you do, you can tell the man on the mission is dedicated. He is gonna make it. Maybe. I mean, there's so much anxiety in
Yeah.
this too. There's some
Yep.
great shootouts, and that I think kind of are reminiscent of Saving Private Ryan. Some of that anxiety building. You feel like you're in the middle of this war, and
Yep.
you're looking around every corner, just like the main guy is. You never know what's coming next.
Yep, and that's kind of like war. You never know when they're coming out of the trenches. Is there going to be enemy 20 feet away from you? You know, you can't see all the time over there. And with when they're in the mine shaft and stuff, there were some good things that catch you off guard.
Yep.
And fantastic.
Yep. So 2 really great recommendations from us. A lot of great movies to check out from these past few months. But when we come back, we're going to talk about what to look forward to here in the month of February. Stay tuned to Popcorn Bucket List.
Disaster tips from the objects left behind.
My home wasn't insured, but you can check your insurance policy now to make sure you're covered. Oh,
My savings are lost, but you can put money aside and plan for unexpected disaster costs.
we're lost forever, but you can scan important documents now so they survive.
For more tips on how to prepare, visit ready.gov.
Welcome back to Popcorn Bucket List. We now get to do one of my favorite parts of the show, the preview of the month to come. This time we are talking about February. Now,
Yes.
in years past, February I feel like has really grown. It has become a much more stronger month for movies.
In years past, yes.
There have been some really big box office juggernauts that have come out of this. Lego Movie, I think, is one of the more popular
Yep.
ones, has really grown in the February month. I think other franchises as well have found their homes in February. This may not be one of those years.
This I would say probably is not one
Yeah.
of those years.
Obviously, now,
We could be wrong. We could be wrong.
and we hope we're wrong.
Yeah,
we like to see movies
yeah.
succeed.
Yeah,
we like
yes,
to.
we do. Yes, we do.
But let's just start previewing some of these guys here. Coming out February 7th to kick things off is DC Comics' Birds of Prey, The Emancipation of Harley Quinn. This is the next line in the DCEU. At this point, I still don't think they know what they're doing, but they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
I think this is going to be I think this is a good move for them. They had a little backlash with Justice League. Pretty much everything they've done. I feel like this is one of the first movies where people aren't ripping it months and months before it comes out. They might start ripping it after, which is totally fine, but they're not already pushing it down before it comes out. People are actually genuinely kind of excited to see it.
I think one of the only things people have agreed on with DC Comics recently is Wonder Woman looks good.
Yep, Wonder
Woman
Woman
1984.
Woman's great.
We saw the trailer of that
Yeah.
recently. I was like, wow, I forgot how cool that movie
Yeah.
looks.
And the poster that's hanging out
Oh,
on
that's
the
so
theater
cool.
downtown is fantastic.
That's
I
a
can't wait.
preview for another month.
Yeah,
though.
yeah,
That's
we'll-
a
we'll
preview
get
for another
there.
month. But yeah, obviously Birds of Prey. This has been heavily marketed for Harley Quinn. There's a fan base there. I like to joke this movie should have been named Harley Quinn featuring the Birds of Prey. It really doesn't feel like a Birds of Prey movie to me. It
Yeah.
feels like it's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey are going to tag along.
They'll be there.
Now,
but
I could be wrong. Oftentimes, marketing can sometimes, like I said, there is a bigger market, I think, for Harley Quinn as a character than there is the entire Birds of Prey. So maybe they're trying to get all the Harley Quinn fans and also maybe grow some of these
Yep.
characters. We'll have to wait and see and find out. But coming out the next week, this is the Valentine's Day weekend, February 14th. Love is in the air usually. Maybe not so much in the theater, though. Coming out February 14th, one of the movies coming out is Fantasy Island. This is a Blumhouse production. They are known for their horror movies, mainly. This was, I believe, originally a 1970s TV show about a magical island that essentially grants you your wish, but then starts kind of turning into a horror movie, essentially.
So it's kind of like a twisted Gilligan's Island kind of thing.
Kind of like a Twisted Gilligan's Island. That's probably a better way to put it. That should be the tagline. It's Twisted Gilligan's Island, probably. Also coming out in that same weekend is probably the most romantic movie out of this whole month, The Photograph. This deals with read the synopsis. Talks about it forces one of the characters to kind of take a deep dive into her mother's early life after her mother died. She finds this photograph, and it gets her entwined with this local reporter as well, who, as you can tell by the poster, probably fall in love.
Probably.
I'm just
fall in
gonna
love.
guess that's
February
spoiler right
14th. It's not necessarily a comedy. It's more of a
if-
romantic movie.
there.
So
Yeah. If they don't fall in love,
Yeah,
I'm
then-
gonna check out this movie. Just even more curious. I'm even more curious then. But finally coming out in that February 14th, that Valentine's Day weekend, Sonic the Hedgehog. This movie, it had something interesting happen to it a couple months ago.
months ago.
You want to talk about it, Ryan?
Yeah, they released a trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody went bananas.
Well,
They
went
hated
bananas.
it. So they ended up redoing the Sonic the Hedgehog character, making him look completely different through the whole film. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be more specific, when they say they hated it, they hated the look of Sonic.
They hated the look of Sonic.
It just looked weird.
yeah.
And so the director came out and said, "We hear you.
We'll
We're
change
gonna
it."
redo every scene
Yep.
with Sonic in it."
So he's completely changed his entire outlook or the way he looks. Probably, I'm assuming the way he moves a little bit. Every scene of an entire film got changed.
Of the title character.
of the title character.
This isn't like the All the Money in the World thing where they had to replace Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
And they maybe had to do a few scenes or
yeah.
something like that.
Or a Marvel had to reshoot a couple of scenes because some things were wrong.
Yeah.
This is the entire film.
the entire movie.
So
They had to redo the CGI of one character.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you get enough people mad, change can happen.
Yep. I would have loved to see the film with the original Sonic looking super goofy.
We want the goofy cut.
Yeah, I want the original old director's cut before. I want to see what the original one was going to be like because I think
Yeah.
it looked goofy,
Yeah.
and I want to see it.
I honestly didn't mind it too much, but I'm not as big of a Sonic fan. So, coming out the next weekend, February 21st, we've got a couple options here. One of the things coming out is, I believe I'm saying this right, Bram's The Boy 2. This is a horror movie sequel about a doll who may or may not be alive. The first boy dealt with, I believe, a nanny having to take care of the boy as if it was a real child.
Yep.
Bringing back a twisted Gilligan's Island for Fantasy Island. It's kind of like a twisted Pinocchio.
Yeah, Twisted Pinocchio.
Yeah.
I like it.
We're just taking all the fun out of everything and just twisting it into
Yep.
horror, I guess,
And
nowadays.
it is a horror movie, so I want to say, you're right. The doll may or may not be alive. You never know.
Who knows?
You never
Gotta
know.
check it out to find out.
You have to wait and see.
Also coming out that same weekend is Call of the Wild. This is a Harrison Ford movie that I believe is technically a Disney remake, technically a Fox remake. I believe this is one of the things they acquired when they bought Fox, I think I've read. This is them. They're going to be releasing this under a Disney. This is one of the first Disney Fox things that they're releasing. This movie also, I think, kind of made some news. I think I just read this recently. This is one of the first movies where they're removing the Fox part of the Fox logo at the beginning of the movie. That was kind of part of the Disney merger. So
Interesting.
we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Yep.
So, but it is a nice little fun movie about a dog who has to find its purpose in the Alaskan Yukon, working with Harrison Ford. This takes place in the late 1800s.
Okay.
So a lot of sled dogs, kind of things need to be used
That'll
for
be-
transportation, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I'm kind of excited for it. I think that'll be good. I like Harrison Ford. I like animals. I've been to Alaska, so it's kind of three things that I kind of like.
It's a very beautiful landscape.
Yeah,
so
it does.
At the
It
very
looks
least, this movie
beautiful.
will look good.
I am a little curious. Some of the CGI that I've seen in the commercials on the dogs looks a little, little goofy, a little Sonic-y.
Yeah,
But-
if we had half the fan base that complained about the Sonic thing,
Yep.
that complained about this dog thing, we would have changed that dog.
Yep,
you know,
that dog would be gone.
The dog would be replaced with a real dog. in
Yeah,
my opinion.
yeah.
But finally, the last weekend of February to look forward to, February 28th. Yet another horror movie coming out, The Invisible Man, also being produced by Blumhouse Pictures.
Be careful what you say about this. He could be in here.
He
with
could
us
be in here right now.
He could be in here right now.
He's the Invisible Man. You never know where he's going to be. Which, if all the horror movies I think we've seen coming out this month, this one I think does intrigue me the most.
I agree.
This one has the most lore behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's been part of the monster universe for a while. And yeah, an Invisible Man following you around would be pretty scary.
terrifying.
Yeah.
You never know if he's there or not. So I'm just interested to see how, how the movie plays out, and if she's able to make people believe that there's a invisible person following her. Because after watching the trailers, it looks pretty good. I'm excited to see it. I think it'll be another good movie.
Blumhouse themselves do have probably one of the better
Yes.
track records in horror currently right now.
Yep.
So.
I give credence to Blumhouse because there might be a movie come out that I hear about it and I don't think it sounds that good, and I hear Blumhouse's name is attached to it. It kind of bumps it up a little bit, in my opinion, because they've had such a strong record of good horror films. So.
Yep. So that's the preview for the month of February. Now it's time for us to make our picks. I got to make a comeback here now. I got to start making some better picks here. For the first time ever, we're going to do the coin flip here live, on air, on this stage. We're gonna flip it. We're gonna decide our box office first, and then our reviewed. So Ryan, would you please do the honors? He's got a real. We decided he should do it because he showed us a real cool way to do the coin flip thing. So Ryan, why don't you flip it? I'll call it.
Make the call,
and then we'll debate on box office first.
Okay.
I'm gonna say tails.
That's good.
That was a really good flip. It takes a little bit though.
Yeah. It is heads.
Ah, come on.
So I win. So which one do I get to pick?
You can pick box office first.
I'm going with Birds of Prey.
So for box office, Ryan is going to take Birds of Prey. I was hoping you would pick Birds of Prey because you've now fallen into my trap.
No way.
My pick for box office is Sonic the Hedgehog. There's clearly a fan base here. Enough people yelled to get it changed. They're going to come to it and make sure they actually did it, that they did their job right.
Okay.
So, I mean, if the number of people yelled about how this movie looked and then nobody shows up, that might be one of the greatest pranks pulled of all time. And this studio is going to look really bad.
Yes,
And fans will never get their way ever again on anything. And yet, a sick part of me kind of wants that to happen because it will be the greatest
If you listen,
troll of all time.
of all time. Oh goodness.
Okay,
All
so
right.
yes, you got to pick
So
first.
I have Birds of Prey, and you are
I'm
going
going to
with
take Sonic for box office. You got to pick first for box office, so I'm going to pick first for reviewed. The pick I'm going to go with for best reviewed of the month of February is Call of the Wild.
That's one I wanted.
And so maybe now I'm going to fall into your trap. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, everyone loves a good dog movie. Everyone loves Harrison Ford. I think this one will be just nice and fun enough that it'll get that best review.
It'll get that best review. All right, fair enough. Well, I'm going not with Fantasy Island and not with The Boy 2. I don't think horror is going to pull it out this month. Birds of Prey is going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be critically where it's at. I'm going out on a limb here. I'm going with The Photograph. This is my sleeper pick. I don't know if sleeper pick's the right word for that. I don't know.
I think we've called it kind of a sleeper pick before.
I give it a shot.
We're essentially nowadays we're essentially trying to pick the movie that we think will bother the least amount of people.
Yes.
At this point in time. That's basically how critical reviews work nowadays.
Yep.
So those are our picks. We're going to look forward. We're going to keep track of these throughout the month of February to see where they stack up. We'll be back next month to look at these, see who won, kind of look at some of the best ones that he's just getting cocky now. It's the cutoffs. He thinks guy wears cutoffs and think he's the toughest guy in the block.
Until I get outside.
Thank you for joining us. It's good to be back. We hope you stick around. Catch us next month, and we will be back to preview the month of March on Popcorn Bucket List.